Do you think the direct participants in the proceedings in the courtroom have the ability to create the carnival atmosphere?
Well, this carnival atmosphere started before there were any court appearances. This carnival atmosphere started way back in December, and before that in 1969. And the fact that people all over the world are interested in this case and so forth is because the district attorney of Los Angeles County wanted to become attorney general, and he used this case for publicity purposes. It's a cleverly calculated scheme.
To ask this man any questions, not even his name. You're to stay at least 5 feet away from him, take pictures of him all you want, to the courthouse steps, and that is all.
What happens if we don't?
You might go to jail.
Okay, thanks. Back up a little, you guys. Back up a little bit.
Today?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yo, what's up, Charlie? Hold it down from the inside. We're getting real satanic out here, Charlie.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Hey guys, welcome to Strange Suspicion. If you're new here, please consider pressing that subscribe button, like the videos you like, and I also encourage you to leave your comments, and I appreciate so much when you share these videos. Welcome to the Manson Family Trial Series. This is the first episode in this series, and this series will cover so much. It's gonna cover the homicides the night of August 9th, 1969 at the home of Sharon Tate and her husband, Roman Polanski. He directed a movie called Rosemary's Baby, if you've heard of it. Sharon Tate, who was a famous actress, as well as her unborn child, lost their lives, along with Abigail Folger, who was the heiress to the coffee enterprise, a Polish writer by the name of Wojciech Frykowski, and a celebrity hairstylist named Jay Sebring, and finally Stephen Parent. On the night of August 9th, Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Lena Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel drove up the canyon and committed these homicides. With the exception of Linda, who went along, and her job was basically to be a lookout. And she did not take part in the murders. She was just along to listen and watch, and I guess alert them if she saw anything that she thought would get them in trouble. So she jumps out of the car and she runs up to Susan Atkins, who's stabbing Sharon Tate, and yells for her to stop. Susan just continues stabbing and stabbing Sharon Tate. It's too late. She got afraid and she went back to the car. But the most noteworthy part about this is that Charlie Manson wasn't even there, guys. But he was absolutely charged with each one of these people's murders. He wasn't even there. Interesting to note, kind of a side remark, but I thought it was interesting that Sharon Tate's husband, 1 year before this, Roman Polanski, he directed a movie called Rosemary's Baby, which is about a young woman who lives in New York, and she becomes pregnant. And while she's pregnant, she is very afraid and suspects her elderly neighbors of taking part in a satanic cult, and she believes that they're grooming her in order to get her baby for satanic rituals.
Where were the bodies found? All in one room? No. 2 of the bodies were found inside the house, 1 in the vehicle, and 2 on the front lawn.
Were there any hangings or anything of that sort?
Not that we can determine at this time.
Wasn't there a body covered by a hood with a rope around its neck?
These are things that I can't give you too much information on at this time until the scientific investigation
Any idea?
personnel make their full
Was there any
evaluation.
evidence of drugs there anywhere?
Not that I saw any drugs. We have no idea. This is what we're trying to determine.
Of devotion. Manson family shave their heads and weave their hair onto an elaborate waistcoat they plan to give Manson on his release.
The Manson girls shaved their heads and sewed it on a jacket for Charlie. They protested by walking 10 miles on their knees. These women really, really cared for Charlie, and they tried to do anything they could to bring attention to this case. Charlie couldn't have had a worse lawyer. Like, he had the absolute worst possible lawyer that he could get. And Linda decided that she was going to get herself out of everything and said she had no part in anything. She stated that she was in the car as a lookout. She didn't commit any of the murders. But if she implicated Charlie, then she could get herself off of her own charges.
Doesn't mean you're guilty of something.
What does mean you're guilty?
When you know you're guilty.
What about Shay?
What about him?
Well, what about him?
He got killed.
Well, the word is you killed him.
Word is that you're an old woman. Word is you have turkey in the sky. Word is, I don't know what word is. Somebody else tell you that. I didn't tell you that.
Did you kill Shay?
Hell no.
Did you cut Hinman's ear off?
Hell yes. You do what I say. And he said no. I said, you do exactly what I say. And he said no. I'm telling you. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. You do exactly what I say. And that's about the extent of it. All this occult, all that hocus pocus stuff that you guys are playing, I don't know nothing about all that.
You know nothing about something called helter-skelter. Tell me, Charles, I don't know.
It's a fairy. It's worse than a fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale.
It's a comedy. It's a comedy tragedy. And you want to hear something?
Yeah?
He'll do it better than me.
Do what?
Whatever he does. He'll do it a little better. Kids do, don't they?
The body of Sharon Tate is make-believe.
That's make-believe.
Make-believe. Yeah.
That's make-believe to the people that went in there and did what they did.
Mm-hmm. And who were those people?
But you
know who they were.
Sure I know who they were.
They were with you at the Spawn Ranch. They were part of this thing called, if not the Manson family or the Manson cult, the Manson Ranch. Call it what you will.
So then, what? Feelings towards everything. I feel no bad. I know no bad. Open them. I'm not against you, huh? Are you bitter? Bitter? No.
What happened was she got herself a great lawyer, much, much better than Charlie Manson's lawyer. And this lawyer got her a deal. If she testified against Charlie, all her charges would be dropped.
Linda is a friend of mine.
I know that.
And she hasn't been able to see anybody for a long time. She's been programmed and programmed and programmed with negative programming to where she's frightened. She wants her children back. Whatever she has to do to get her children back, she's doing it, whether it's true or untrue. And I can see where she would do anything to get out of jail and to get her kids back.
I think if he had had a competent lawyer, he would have either walked at the trial or walked on appeal, because there just wasn't sufficient testimony to convict him of anything.
He's even admitted that it was a very unethical way to go about it. Charlie Manson was convicted and that it wasn't morally wrong, but it was wrong and it was an injustice to Charlie the way that he was convicted of crimes. It was like they wanted to put him away and they said whatever they needed to put him away and then made it public knowledge. Guys, that's crazy. It's like everybody was in on it. Even Richard Nixon.
On his way back to Washington from San Clemente today, President Nixon stopped in Denver to talk to a meeting of law enforcement officials, and then he called a news conference.
That kind of story. I noted, for example, the coverage of the Charles Manson case when I was in Los Angeles. Front page every day in the papers. It usually got a couple of minutes in the evening news. Here is a man who was guilty, directly or indirectly, of 8 murders without reason.
Reading from notes he had in his hand, he said, unless this glorification of those obstructing justice is stopped, the system will break down. And then the president made the flat statement that Charles Manson, who is on trial for his life in Los Angeles, is guilty, directly or indirectly, of 8 murders. A few minutes later, his press secretary called back and said he was retracting the president's statement because he had failed in referring to Manson, failed to use the word alleged.
On December 1st, 1969, arrest warrants were issued for Watson, Krenwinkel, and Kasabian. The reason that Susan Atkins didn't receive an arrest warrant is because she was already incarcerated along with Charlie Manson on a grand theft auto charge. The interesting thing about that is she may or may not have taken her role in any of these people's homicides. And her lawyer was the one who got her this deal, and all she had to do was claim she had no part of this, as well as make it sound like Charlie enough of a part that they could get him on homicide. It's really sad that the image of him was so concrete, so put in place.
Go ride a horse. Go ride a horse.
They made the property owner feel appreciated. These were hippies. During the Vietnam War, hippies weren't very respected. They were targeted as a group to be responsible for something like this. But they did admit to doing these things, and they got him incarcerated longer than anyone who was even there. They even wanted to sentence him to death. The only reason Charlie wasn't sentenced to death was because the death penalty law changed. Manson family, they rode horses, they sewed their clothing, they cooked, they cleaned, became so bonded together, these people. They sang together, they spent every moment together, and they were all absolutely in love with this man named Charlie Manson. I don't really think they meant for this to happen. But the ones responsible for this aren't named Charlie Manson. But there he sat in jail until he died. Because his trial was a setup. This trial was not what you think it is, guys. Charlie Manson may not be who you think he was. Charlie Manson was a man of many faces, many voices.
We gotta figure this out, guys.
You got really lucky.